though? What up, though? This is the Onrea Initiative Podcast, man. This is the Onrea Initiative Podcast. I'm Brian Onrea, and this is going to be the best of 2023, the year-end review of 2023 from my perspective. And, of course, it's going to have a positive spin on it, man, because I'm all about positive energy and taking the positives out of this year. It may have been a lot of negatives that happened this year, but I don't want to focus on that. I want to focus on the positive this year. And I want to start off with just being thankful, thankful that we made it another year. We made it to the end of the year. Some people didn't make it, man. Some people we lost this year, and that's something that's, going to stick with us. Some of the losses really hurt, but we made it. We made it to the end of the year. We're here. I'm here. You're watching this. You know what I'm saying? So that's a blessing. Let's end the year with thankfulness. Let's begin the next year with thankfulness. It's always good to be thankful for what you have instead of worrying about what you don't have or worrying about the bad that happened to you. Instead, let's focus on the good that happened to us this year. And what I want to do for this episode, and maybe even the next episode, this may end up being a 2-part episode because there's just so much that happened. I'll talk about music, movies, and sports. Mainly, those are my main things. And of course, there's a lot of things that happen in the news as well. Might cover a little bit of that, especially in the sports part. A lot of news with the sports, even with the movies too, and music. But I want to just start off talking about the best things of 2023. And I'm going to do the best movies, the best TV series, the best podcasts, my best albums of the year, music of the year. And then I'll talk about some of the sports moments, man. Again, this may be a 2-parter, but I want to jump right in, man, with TV shows. My favorite TV shows of 2023, man. And again, this is just my opinion. I'm not saying these are the absolute best. This is just what I enjoyed the most. What Brian Onrea took initiative to watch. A lot of these shows I watched on the airplane. I took a lot of flights this year. I probably took more flights this year than I took of any year of my life. So a lot of these shows kind of got me through the airport waits, being up in the air. I watched a lot of these shows, thank God for Netflix, Hulu, HBO, or Max as it's called now, where you can just you can download the episodes on your phone and watch them. 'Cause that's what I did with a lot of these TV shows. But let's go ahead and go over it, man. And again, this is not exactly in order. It's kind of in order, but not exactly, But anyway, my number 11 TV series was The Other Black Girl. I think that's on Hulu. The Other Black Girl. It's a pretty good show, man. It's about these women who are coming up in a corporate firm. I think it's a literary firm, a book firm. And it just shows like the competitive nature that people can have in the workforce, particularly if you're African American. It's pretty good, man. Got a nice good twist at the end. I love twists. I love twists and turns. So The Other Black Girl was good, that I liked. Number 10 was a documentary, the Murdaugh murders. Murdaugh, however you pronounce it, over in South Carolina. Now, this particular series, I think every major outlet did their version of this. From HBO has a version of it. Netflix got a version of it. Hulu might have a version of it. I know on the Investigation Discovery Channel, they had a version of it. So I'm just going to say all of them. All of the Murdaugh documentaries on all the platforms. Watch them, because it's pretty intriguing. And it gets so much deeper than what you just see. Of course, Murdaugh was the guy who went to trial for killing his wife and son. That's all I'm going to say about it. Of course, you can Google what happened in the trial, but it's just crazy. The Murdaugh murders was number 10. Number 9 was something, and again, these series are my favorite series of the year, but a lot of these series started years ago, but I included it if, they had a season in 2023. So Top Boy was number 9. Of course, Top Boy had been around for many years, but the last season aired in 2023. And I just got put up on Top Boy. Top Boy was real good. Top Boy is basically like a little a street drama, but it's based in the streets of London. And it's crazy because, of course, I've never been to London, but just, the lingo that they use over there, you know what I'm saying? They say in it a lot. They say in it a lot over there. They say in it, and they call their drugs food. You know, give me some food in it. It's crazy, but Top Boy was number 9, man, for me. I love Top Boy. Number 8 was The Last of Us. The Last of Us was on HBO Max, and it was based off a video game, and it's just real good. It's about some like vampire apocalyptic type stuff. Again, it's based on the video game. I didn't know much about the video game, but my son plays the video game, and he put me up on it, man. But it's a pretty good show, man. And apparently they're making another season of it. But The Last of Us was real good. Number 7, man, The Righteous Gemstones. Oh, The Righteous Gemstones, man. It's one of the funniest shows I've ever like heard in the last few years, man. Crazy funny. It's about this church family called the Gemstones, who had this mega church empire, and everything ain't what it seems. It's real funny. But those of us that's been a part of big churches, you will get a lot of humor out of that show. It's a good show, man. Number 6, The Fall of the House of Usher. And that's a Mike Flanagan show. Mike Flanagan is the guy that made The Haunting of Hill House, The Haunting of Bly Manor, Midnight Mass. He makes all these like horror dramas. It's like a drama. You got a drama and a horror mixed together. So it has a lot of emotion in it, a lot of scary stuff in it. Really good. And the cool thing about Mike Flanagan is that for the most part, he uses the same handful of actors and actresses to star in all his shows. So all these shows are like different stories, but a lot of the same main characters. But yeah, the Fall of the House of Usher was really good. Really. It's probably the best show he did since The Haunting of Hill House. Number 5, a comedy on Netflix, The Upshaws. The Upshaws is a hilarious show with Mike Epps, Wanda Sykes, Paige Kennedy is on there, Kim Fields is on there. Just a funny show. So it's a sitcom, and it reminds you of the old school sitcoms, man. You know, like the Sanford and Sons, the 227s, the Good Times. It has that kind of vibe. It's on Netflix, so they're allowed to use mature language, which makes it even better because it's more realistic. But yeah, The Upshaws was my number 5, man. Number 4, I'm gonna switch this around a little bit. Number 4, I'm gonna say Black Mirror. Black Mirror, I think had about 4 or 6 episodes that dropped this year in their new season 6. And I love Black Mirror, but I will say this Black Mirror was different than the other Black Mirror seasons, period. These episodes were a little bit different. Took a little bit of getting used to, but I really like it though. The first episode though of the season of Black Mirror, it's like a typical Black Mirror episode, but the other 3 were way different, but it was still real good, man. The critics, I think, had mixed reviews on it, but I like it, man. Black Mirror this season was pretty good, man. Number 3, I'm gonna say Succession. Succession, crazy show. And this show won a whole lot of awards, man. And in doing my research, because I just started watching Succession this year, and I loved it. But I found out that Succession been winning like all the darn awards, man, every year just about. You know what I'm saying? Like the best actor, best actress, best supporting actor, best director, best screenplay. Like they been tearing up the awards for years, which is good. But I'm gonna tell you a little bit why I kind of don't think it's good. But I will say it's deserving of a lot of awards because it's a really good show. And it's about they say, some of the critics say that the show was loosely kind of about the Fox family, the family that owns the Fox News empire, the Murdochs. I'm not sure if that's true, but they're saying it's kind of sort of like that because in Succession, this family owns this media empire similar to Fox News, where they own like movie studios, TV studios, blogs, record labels, record companies. It's a crazy thing, but all the kids are trying to succeed the father to take over the company. That's what the show is about. Good show, man. And the final season was this year. So yeah, that was my number 3. Number 2 is Beef on Netflix. That show just kind of took the nation by storm. It took me by storm. I had to binge watch it. It's basically about this lady who got into a minor fender bender in a retail parking lot with another guy, and they just kind of have beef over the whole year about this fender bender they had, and it's a long web of just manipulation, plotting. Just it's a crazy, crazy show. Beef on Netflix, man. Go check that out, man. And my number one show of the year was Snowfall. Oh my goodness, Snowfall was such a good show. And again, it's another one of those shows that I didn't start watching until this year, but the final season came out this year. I binged the whole thing within a couple of weeks. It's really, really good. One thing that disappointed me though is that Snowfall never was nominated for any kind of like Emmy Awards or any major awards. And that really got under my skin, especially this last season. This last season should have been nominated for something. Damson Idris, the lead actor, did really, really good. He's an actor from the UK, from London, and you wouldn't even know it based on how he acted. He sounded like somebody from South Central LA. And basically the Snowfall story is about the drug trade when the crack epidemic happened in the 80s over there in California, in Southern California in particular. And it's got political parts to it, man. And if you know a little bit about the history of the drug trade back in the days, you would know that like a lot of this stuff is historically accurate. Some of it is just debatable, but it's just a real good show though. So those are my favorite TV series, man, for the year. What are your favorite TV series, man? Let me know. Yeah, man. So those are my favorite TV shows. I want to get into my favorite movies for the year. And again, the fascination with TV and movies is that, you know, I'm somebody that dreams big, and I believe that TV and movies help you dream because it takes you to another reality. It takes you to another dimension. You're watching either a fictionalized story or something that's based on a true story, but you're watching something that's, you know, they're actors, they're not real people, but they take you into another world. They take you into another reality, and you're able to kind of just dream and discover and just kind of live in another reality for a while. And you can take those things from that alternate reality and bring it back to reality. You know, I like movies and TV shows that make you think about life, that make you think about family. Again, like that show like Succession and even The Fall of the House of Usher, you had a lot of family dynamic, sibling dynamic. Being a father, you had fathers in those two shows with children, and you know, them figuring out life with their children and figuring out how to pass along, you know, the empire to the children. That's just an example. But, you know, the Upshaws even had things that make you think about life and family. Even that's a comedy. So I love what movies and TVs can do for dreamers. If you're a dreamer, man, it's good to kind of escape reality a little bit in TV movies. Now, let's get into the movies, man. I had to pick 11. I love movies. I had a lot more than 11 movies that I liked, but I'm going to get into my top 11 movies, okay? And again, I love all types of movies. My favorite types are like the crime movies, the thrillers, horror, you know, and just a good sci-fi movie as well. But let's get into my top 11 movies, man. Number 11 was Scream 6. Scream 6 was good, man. I love Scream 6. You know, it's not much to say about that. It's a slasher film. You know, it's always like a whodunit. You got to guess who done it. You know, and they're not like you know, epic dramas with like this complex plot or this deep thing. Just a good fun. They call it a popcorn movie, a good popcorn movie. That movie did pretty good at the box office, $170 million worldwide, and even a 76% on Rotten Tomatoes. Now, Rotten Tomatoes scores movies, but typically horror movies don't get, to me, in my opinion, don't get a lot of credit from critics, but it did pretty good at Rotten Tomatoes. Now, it's a lot of drama going on with Scream 7 this year. You know, they announced once Scream 6 did good, they announced they was going to do a Scream 7, and all the actors was going to come back. Jen Ortega was coming back. Melissa, I forget her last name, was coming back. Anyway, that whole Scream 7 fell apart. You know, the one actress, Melissa, what's her name? I can't remember her last name. She tweeted out something or posted something on her Instagram regarding the conflict in Israel and Palestine. And they kicked her off the movie. And then Jen Ortega left the movie. Then the director left the movie. So Scream 7 is up in the air, but Scream 6 was good. I'll give him that. Number 10 was The Burial. I just saw The Burial recently. The Burial was based on a true story. Jamie Foxx played a lawyer, a popular lawyer. Again, I forget the name of the lawyer, but he played a real life character, a lawyer out of Florida who won a big case. Pretty good movie. Tommy Lee Jones starred along with Jamie Foxx's movie. Pretty good. I think that movie is on Amazon Prime. It's a streaming movie. It's streaming. It didn't go to theaters. Number 9 was Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part 1. And this is a good movie, man. Now, it kind of ended on a cliffhanger, but it's a good cliffhanger. Tom Cruise and Mission Impossible, they kind of can't miss. This movie did a little over $500 million. Now, these movies have big budgets, so I'm not sure if it made all the money back from the budget. I don't know if 500 million is a disappointment or not, because Tom Cruise does such big movies. But I liked it a lot. It got a 96 score on Rotten Tomatoes. Real good movie. If you haven't seen Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning, check it out. Number 8 was an animated movie, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. Another movie that ended on a cliffhanger. So that sequel's coming out hopefully soon. Good movie though. And for me, for an adult, man, I don't watch a lot of cartoons, but for me to really get into an animated movie, it had to be really good, man. So that movie was good. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, number 8. Number 7, this was a movie that the critics didn't like. Not a lot of people liked it, but I loved it. Transformers: Rise of the Beast. I love that Transformers movie, and I didn't even think I would like it. I went into this movie thinking that I probably wasn't gonna like it, but I ended up liking it a whole lot. It's got some fresh characters, and I love the end of the movie. The end of the movie, stay after the credits. There's a post-credit scene that gives you a preview of what I hope to be the future of that universe. It's a good movie, Transformers: Rise of the Beast. Number 6, the last Guardians of the Galaxy, Guardians of the Galaxy 3. That has to be in the top 3 Marvel movies. Out of the whole Marvel universe, that movie was really, really good. It had a lot of feeling into it, a lot of drama in it, as well as suspense. Really, really good movie though. Well done. If you like the Marvel universe and the Guardians of the Galaxy characters, you will love Guardians of the Galaxy 3. Really good movie. Number 5, They Clone Tyrone. You know what I'm saying? That was a Netflix movie, I believe. Jamie Foxx was in it as the lead character. Really, really good movie, man. It's about like conspiracy theories, with the black community and the government. That's all I'm gonna say about it, but it's a real good movie, man. Really, I love movies with fresh ideas, and also movies that make you think. I don't think this is literally this literally happens, what happens in the movie. Some people are on the deep end and they think this stuff is real. I don't think They Clone Tyrone happens in reality, but I think it could be a little bit of truth sprinkled in there, especially with the history of African Americans in this country. It's a good movie though, that everybody can see. Speaking of African Americans, number 4 was The Blackening. The Blackening, man. It's a horror movie, thriller horror movie. Kind of like the Scream franchise, kind of like that. But it was a good movie, man. The Blackening. It's about this group of friends from college meeting up after a few years, post-college. They're meeting up for a little vacation in Airbnb, and they're forced to play this game called The Blackening. And that's all I say. It's a good movie, man, The Blackening. Number 3, speaking of horror movies, is Saw 10. I'm a big Saw fan. If you know me, you know I love Saw. I've been watching Saw movies since I think 2004 when it came out, or 2005. Whatever Saw came out, I've been watching it since then. And Saw will come out every year, and I watch it every year. Long story short, Saw 1 through 4 was good. Saw 5 through 7 was whack. Saw 8, which was Jigsaw, I loved. People didn't like Jigsaw. I loved Jigsaw. I thought Jigsaw was really good. Saw 9 was The Book of Spyro with Chris Rock and Samuel L. Jackson. That movie was a little bit of a disappointment. It was decent, but the ending, I didn't like the ending to that movie. But Saw 10 was pretty good, man. Pretty good Saw movie. I judge Saw movies by how they end. And this ending wasn't the best ending, but it was pretty solid. But the movie itself was real suspenseful and really good. A little bit of a different take on Saw. So that was a good movie. Number 2 was Talk to Me. Creepy, scary movie. Talk to Me was real creepy. It's about these kids over in the UK, I believe it's the UK, that played this game with this hand, where you grab this hand and say, talk to me, and you're like possessed. And you do it for, I think, 60 seconds. And then you have to come out of it. And these kids got more than what they bargained for playing this game. It's a really good movie, man. Talk to Me. I think it was the best horror movie of the year, and my second favorite movie of the year. And my number one favorite movie was The Iron Claw. The Iron Claw was a drama, but it was based on a true story about this wrestling family, the Van something, I forget their name. It's crazy because I watched wrestling growing up as a kid, but I must have started watching it right after this family's dominance, because Ric Flair character is in the movie, and this is around, and I love Ric Flair, but I started watching wrestling like in the late 80s, early 90s, and I think this movie was like in the late 70s to mid 80s, but it's a really, really good movie. It's about this real life wrestling family, and they got inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame in 2009, and they're regarded as like the best. Like the father wrestled, and he had 5 sons. 4 of his sons wrestled as well, and it was this wrestling family. And it's really good, man. It's about family. It's real dramatic. Check out Iron Claw. But those are my favorite movies, man. Let me know what your favorite movies are, man. Your favorite movies, favorite TV shows. Let me know in the comments what yours are, man. And we can kind of discuss a little bit in the comments on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, wherever I post this. Let me know what are your favorite movies and TV shows of 2023. All right, so we're going to keep it moving, man. We're going to keep it moving, and we're going to get into like podcasts. And I'm going to talk about my favorite podcast of the year. I'm a big podcast head, man. I love podcasts, man. Now, my only criteria for this list is that you got to be consistent, at least somewhat consistent. There's a lot of dope podcasts that were like limited. Like Will Smith did his Class of '88 podcast. That was real dope. I love that, but it was a limited podcast. Nas, had a podcast, Miss Info. Was that this year or last year? He had a dope podcast, but again, it was limited. Kevin Hart has a dope podcast, Gold Mines, but it's on and off. He'll do new episodes, then he'll go months with reruns. So those are all dope, but I want to rank the podcasts that are consistent with fresh episodes consistently. So again, it's a lot of podcasts that I do like. Marcellus Wiley has a daily show, but it's not really a podcast anymore. It used to be a podcast, but he was like my favorite, but I didn't include him because he has more like a TV show on YouTube, more so than a podcast, because you can't really find it on podcast apps anymore. So I'm going to rank my best podcasts that are consistent, for the most part. Number 11, and these are like sports podcasts. Some are sports podcasts, some are music podcasts, some are like, I watch them for comedic purposes, But number 11, I'm going to go with the Knuckleheads podcast. That's one of my favorite sports podcasts. They talk basketball with Q Rich, Quentin Richardson, and Darius Miles. They're very knowledgeable. I love their first question. They always say, who was the first person to bust your who was the first person in the league when you came into the NBA to really dog you on the court, to really get the best of you on the court, talking to NBA players. And I love that podcast. Number 10 is $1 Million Worth of Game with Gillian Wallow. Shout out to that show. That show started kind of small, and Wallow has a great story. Wallow was locked up for many years. I forget how many years, but like over a decade in jail. He got out of jail and just hit the ground running. They got a good dynamic. They always give him free game. And they have great guests, And they're a good success story. So I love their podcast. Number 9 is Joe Rogan, man. What I love about Joe Rogan, and there's some things I kind of don't like about him too, but whatever. He has a great podcast. I think sometimes he gets a little bit too on his high horse about conspiracy theories, like the vaccinations and all that stuff. But that's neither here nor there. He has a good podcast, great podcast. I love how it's just free. He don't really prepare a lot. He just sit down and just kind of like has a conversation. His podcast has helped me on a lot of road trips. When I got a road trip, I could pop in a Joe Rogan podcast and hear him talk with somebody interesting for 3 hours. And I love that he just does episodes consistently. Like he'll do an episode 3-4 episodes a week. He just does them and puts them out. He don't sit on them. He don't hold them. He just does them and puts them out. And I love that. And I get motivation from that, from my podcast. I just want to do them and put them out. I don't want to have a schedule. I don't want to like say, okay, I'm going to do a podcast every Tuesday. I just want to do them whenever I feel like it. You know what I'm saying? Number 8 was Earn Your Leisure. I love Earn Your Leisure, man. being an entrepreneur, I've been an entrepreneur for years. I love hearing successful entrepreneurial stories, and they give out a lot of free game how you can be an entrepreneur as well. So on your leisure, man. And I love how that podcast grew. I watched it when it was a smaller podcast, and I watched them blow up. Now they got the big time guests. I'm glad that sometimes they still go back and get the small business owners too, because that's what I can really relate to, the smaller business owners trying to grow, as well as the larger business owners. But shout out to Earn Your Leisure. Number 7 is Rap Radar. Now, Rap Radar with Elliot Wilson and B Dot. I love that podcast because they don't do culture vulture stuff. They don't do clickbait. I have the opinion that when it comes to hip hop or urban media, 90% of urban media is like culture vultures. It's just the truth, man. People criticize DJ Vlad and they call him a culture vulture. I kind of disagree, but I feel like if he's a culture vulture, then most of rap media is culture vultures, because they use clickbait. They use clickbait and they sell BS. Rap Radar is one of the only hip hop podcasts that don't do that. So shout out to Rap Radar podcast. They have quality music conversations, man. Shout out to them. I know Elliot Wilson had a lot of controversy this year with him first calling out Drake for not doing an interview with The Culture. You know what I'm saying? He had an interview with that Bobby girl. Then he had a little controversy with, is that a car going by? I record this podcast super early in the morning so that I don't have noises, but I guess I'm running a little late. But yeah, Elliot Wilson, man, and the Rap Radar podcast, he had a controversy with Nicki Minaj when she did the one interview with the streaming guy, K-Cent, I believe is his name. But hey, man, that's a good hip-hop podcast, quality hip-hop podcast. Speaking of quality hip-hop, number 6 was a new podcast I just came across called The Sample Lounge. And this guy, I think this guy is over in the UK, I believe. But this dude has like long interviews with producers. He had an interview, I think, Jimmy Jam or Terry Lewis one. I think it was Jimmy Jam. And it went for like 6 hours. He had a long interview with High Tech that went for 6 hours. He does in-depth interviews with producers. If you love, of course I do the Free Game Producer podcast, so I love producer podcasts. So if you love producer podcasts, the Sample Lounge, man, is really, really good, man. He had one with Knife Wonder that was really good. You know what I'm saying? Number 5 podcast is All the Smoke. Shout out to Steven Jackson and Matt Barnes. Sort of like the Knuckleheads. They do a good podcast with athletes. And what I like about them is that they let athletes tell their story unfiltered. It's not no spin on it. A lot of times the media will filter information and put a twist on it, but Matt Barnes and Stack just let them just tell it how it is. Number 4, Questlove Supreme. Now that podcast, I think they're consistent. I think sometimes they're not consistent. So I might be breaking the rules by putting him on my list, but he does a good quality music discussion on his podcast. He had an episode with Slum Village earlier this year that I really, really loved, because he broke down like the Detroit culture. He did an interview with Andre 3000 that was really good. So yeah, Questlove. He has Fonte. Fonte is on his podcast, and let me tell you something. Fonte is just a rap savant. Fonte is just a great rap mind. He's a great rapper, but he's a great rap mind. So him being on that panel with Questlove is a good podcast, man. I love it. Number 3, man, It Is What It Is with Cam and Mace. Now that podcast is a sports podcast, but honestly, I don't really watch it for the sports takes, because most of the time they don't even have their facts right when it comes to sports. They don't even have all the information. They're just hilarious, man. Their takes. I don't watch the show for their sports information. I watch it for the sports takes, because the sports takes are funny. Hilarious, man. Shout out to them. They just started, I think, October or something like that. Or no, it started in the summer. I remember watching them do an interview at Summer League. But they started, I think, in the spring. But they got a great podcast. Really, really funny. Speaking of sports podcasts, number 2 is The Nightcap. The Nightcap with Shannon Sharp and Chad Ochocinco. Oh, my goodness. Again, I like both their sports takes, even though I don't always agree, but I like them, and I like their dynamic together. They're so funny together. And that's a new podcast too that just started a few months ago, but that is my favorite, my number 2 favorite of the year. Hilarious podcast. And I love how they drop them fast. they'll drop a podcast every night after the football games. You know what I'm saying? Boom. And then you got Gilbert Arenas to come on there. And Gilbert Arenas, I don't like all his takes, but at least he's like fresh with his takes. So at least on Nightcap, Gilbert Arenas is pretty good on Nightcap. And my number one podcast for the year is Talib Kweli and the People's Party. That is the best hip hop podcast, hands down. Talib Kweli is a great rapper, okay? But he's an even better interviewer. He's the best hip hop interviewer. He does his research. He asks thought-provoking questions. He don't duck the smoke. He get right to it. And I don't know, he just did the best hip hop podcast, man. And I think it's really under the radar. A lot of people don't really talk about People's Party podcast, but it's the best. It's my number one favorite podcast for 2023 and 2022 and 2021. He's got a dope podcast, man. But those are my favorite podcasts. What are your favorite podcasts? I know I forgot about some. I know I didn't mention some, that I could have mentioned, but those are just my top 11. What are your top podcasts? Let me know in the comments, man. You feel me? I'm reading this. All right, man. So those are my favorite podcasts for the year. Let's talk about music, man. Let's talk about my favorite albums of the year, man. And maybe favorite songs, I don't know. But let's just do albums. Let's start off with albums, man. Now, these are pretty much hip-hop albums. That's as far as new music, that's what I listen to. But if I'm going to give full disclosure, excuse me. If I'm going to give full disclosure, I listen to mostly old music. Like classic music, whether it's classic hip hop from like the 90s or the 2000s, even some from the 80s, a lot of like music from the funk era, the funk disco era, the 70s, early 80s, a lot of 90s R&B. So I listen to a lot of old music. Like I think Stevie Wonder is like at the top of my most listened to for the year. But I do like some hip hop, and a lot of Detroit hip hop. A lot of Detroit hip hop I play a lot, but I found it really hard to find my top 11 hip hop albums because I don't think a lot of dope albums came out this year. So like I had my top 5, 6, 7, but trying to find like 8 through 11 was kind of hard because like I'm like, dang, am I missing something? But it wasn't a lot of dope albums in my opinion. I asked on Instagram last night for y'all to tell me what albums y'all thought was dope. And I didn't get no responses. so maybe I'll get some more after this. But here are my top 11 albums for the year. Again, some of these I'm not super crazy about, but I do think all these albums are dope. Now, if they weren't dope, I wouldn't mention them. So these are dope albums. These are my top 11 albums. Number 11, Don Toliver, Lovesick. My daughter is a big fan of Don Toliver. So, we ride in the car a lot together. So I listen to a lot of Don Toliver. Pretty good album. He got a dope song with Charlie Wilson on there. If I Had, dope song. You know what I'm saying? Number 10, 2 Chainz and Lil Wayne, Welcome to Collard Grove. Dope album, man. What's that one song? Pressure. That song I think went viral on a lot of TikTok videos. Dope album, you know what I'm saying? Manny Fresh had a couple dope beats on there, you know what I'm saying? Dope album. 50 Cent narrated that album. Dope album. Number 9, Nicki Minaj, man. Pink Friday 2. Listen, say what you want about Nicki Minaj. Sometimes I think Nicki Minaj's kind of attitude kind of comes off kind of rude sometimes. I'm just going to keep it real. She seems to be kind of mean sometimes. I could be tripping. I don't know. But you can't deny how dope she is. I think Nicki Minaj is the greatest female rapper of all time. Yep. I said it. Nicki Minaj. I've been saying this for a couple of years now. I think when it comes to female rap, Nicki is the GOAT by herself. You know what I'm saying? We could talk accomplishments. We could talk rhyme skills, bar for bar. And I love how she champions her pen. Like, no, I wrote that. I love how she because I do think writing makes you a better rapper. I don't think that you have to write all your stuff. I don't think that. But I do think kudos to you for writing your own stuff, because some people can write real good, but they can't deliver. They just can't really break through as a artist themselves. You know what I'm saying? And some people are incredible artists, but they can't write. I think Eazy-E had one of the best rap voices ever, and apparently it was hard to get him to kind of deliver those verses. But when they came out, though, it came out great, and Eazy couldn't write a lick. He couldn't even rap that good, but his voice, so I think that You don't got a right to be great, but I think if you can write and you can put it all together as one, you dangerous. So Nicki Minaj is the dopest. And Pink Friday 2 is pretty good. She was barring y'all fools up, giving y'all bars, man. So number 9, Pink Friday 2. Number 8, man, Hometown Love, man. No, I'm gonna switch the order. I'm gonna make that number 7. Number 8, I'm gonna go to Larry June, The Night Shift. And that's Larry June's album with Cardo. I think Larry June and Cardo. I think Cardo got wings. Him and Larry June and him and Payroll Giovanni. Cardo make dope albums with Larry June and Payroll. You know what I'm saying? They need to do a album with the three of them. Larry June, Cardo, and Payroll. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, Larry June, The Night Shift. Number 8, dope beats, laid back rhymes. I love that album. Number 7, T Grizzly, T's Coney Island, man. I love T Grizzly, man. I think T Grizzly is making a case of being one of the GOATs out of Detroit. You know what I'm saying? When it comes to Detroit rap, like bars, just overall, I got Eminem, Royce, Elzhi is up there. But I think that T is making this case to be one of the best lyricists ever to come out of Detroit, because he got it. He got the wordplay, he got the punchlines, he got the delivery, he got the swag. T Grizzly, and this album, he's just floating. He floating on the whole album. T is Coney Island, man. Coney Island is, if you don't know Coney Island, it's like a restaurant, kind of like a bootleg restaurant chain in Detroit. I say bootleg because it's not like an official Coney Island corporation. You know what I'm saying? But it's a certain restaurant that you can open and have like chili dog, have everything there from breakfast to hamburgers to hot dogs. And his album is called T's Coney Island. Dope album, man. Number 7. Number 6, man, was Jack Harlow, Jackman. And I was surprised, man. Jack Harlow went back to the essence on this album where he just spitting rhymes, man, like lyrically. Dope beats, dope rhymes. Real simple. And he killed it, man. So I'm going to give Jackman number 6. Number 5, Killer Michael. That album was more cinematic to me, man. You know, it was like Killer Mike telling his life story. You know what I'm saying? Dope album. He had that dope song, Scientists and Engineers, I think it's what it's called, with Future and Andre 3000. I ran a lot of miles to that song, man. Dope album though, man. Shout out to No ID. I think No ID kind of produced most of that album, so shout out to that. Number 4, Offset, Set It Off. Offset had a real dope album, man. Beat one. And what I like about that album was Offset, he didn't stick to his typical formula in terms of producers. He got the Metro Boomins and the 808 Mafia on there, but he also ventured out and got more production, more like, I guess, classical hip hop production, and he murdered all the songs. He got dope videos, dope visuals, you know what I'm saying? Dope album. Offset, Set It Off was dope. Number 3, man, Hometown, Peasy from Detroit, man. Peasy Ghetto. One of Peasy's best albums, man. He had some dope records on that album, man. Some dope classic records on that album. That album is slept on. If you ain't heard Peasy Ghetto, go get Peasy Ghetto, man. Dope albums, man. He got some real good songs, man. Him and Skilla Baby got a dope song on there. He got a real dope song with Ty Dolla $ign called Blessed. Dope song, man. The intro to that album is so hard, man. Got a dope intro, man. So shout out Peasy. And my number 1 and 2 albums, man, go to Nas, man. Magic 3 is number 2 and Magic 2. So the Nas Magic albums got the 1 and 2 best albums to me of the year. You know what I'm saying? I think Nas is nominated for a Grammy for King's Disease. King's Disease came out at the end of 2022, but it can still count for the Grammy. So, but I think Magic 2 and 3 are the best 2 albums of the year. Sorry, it just is what it is, man. Shout out to Hit Boy. Hit Boy produced those. Hit Boy and Nas, they did a 6-album run over like 3 years. You know, King's Disease 1, 2, and 3, Magic 1, 2, and 3. You know, but yeah, those are some dope records, man. Dope albums, man. So those are my top 11 albums, man, of the year. Let me know what you think. Am I tripping? You know what I'm saying? Do y'all got different albums? Let me know, man. What are your best albums of 2023? All right. Let's wrap this up with some good sports talk. You know what I'm saying? Some good sports talk. The biggest sports stories. Of course, the year started with the Super Bowl. Well, the year started with the college football national championship way back in January. Georgia, of course, won. I was mad Michigan lost to TCU in the playoffs last year. Then TCU got destroyed by Georgia, right? And everybody was saying TCU, didn't belong. And we'll see this year because Michigan is back in the Final Four. Georgia is not, but Georgia won a championship beginning of the year. Then the Super Bowl happened, and the Kansas City Chiefs came through again. And it's like, it was a big deal because, Patrick Mahomes lost a lot of his weapons. He lost Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill is, going down as one of the best wide receivers ever, especially with the historic year he's having this year. He had a good year last year too, but somehow Patrick Mahomes found a way to win. Somehow. So shout out to Kansas City Chiefs. In college basketball, the men UConn won. I don't know. I didn't watch much of that. I know with the women's basketball, LSU, took the world by storm. Angel Reese and the other young lady that be the rapper, they had a dope team. They had a little bit of controversy. Angel Reese, Caitlin Clark were getting into it. It wasn't no real beef there, but the media will try to make it a beef and try to make it a racial thing, but it wasn't no beef there. It was just competitive basketball. But yet the LSU women took the world by storm, and I think that women's basketball took a step in the right direction, because I believe that Final Four and that championship game broke like records for ratings, And I think the WNBA ratings went up. I know when Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark go to the WNBA, I'm going to be tuned in, I went to a WNBA game this year. I took my daughter to a father-daughter night at the WNBA game. So shout out to women's basketball. Women's basketball made progress this year. So shout out to that. See what else happened in sports. Of course, with basketball, the Denver Nuggets won the championship. Shout out to Jokic, Joker, man. Nikola Jokic, man. Shout out to Jamal Murray. Former Pistons won. Two former Pistons won. Caldwell Pope won. He was a Piston. We let go of him. And Bruce Brown, former Piston. Both Pistons draft picks that we let go helped Denver win a championship. Oh, Reggie Jackson, former Piston who won a championship. So all these former Pistons, win a championship on one team. 3 former Pistons on one team won a championship. All right, Pistons. But shout out to the Denver Nuggets, man. They won a championship. Baseball, Texas Rangers. I watched baseball this year. I watched the baseball this year. The thing about baseball is that they don't show baseball games as much as they used to. ESPN shows it once a week, but your local teams, you got to have some kind of like special sports subscription to watch your local teams. I grew up watching the Detroit Tigers on TV every day in Detroit, the Atlanta Braves on TBS every day, on regular cable, and the Chicago team, I think it was Chicago, not the White Sox, but I think the Cubs on WGN in Chicago, which was a national show, a national channel on cable. But now you can't find a baseball game. So I wanted to watch more baseball, but I did watch a lot of the playoffs. So I saw the Texas Rangers. I was actually rooting for Philadelphia to win it all, man. So shout out to that. I think one of the biggest stories in sports was Deion Sanders and the Buffalo football team, the Colorado Buffaloes. Football team, man. They took the world by storm. Even here in Georgia, you can go into like a Dick's Sporting Goods and see the Colorado primetime merchandise. His son, Shedeur Sanders, good quarterback. They got a two-way player. Why am I drawing a blank? A two-way player. I forget the name, but I'm drawing a blank. But yeah, they got a two-way player that's just what's the kid's name? The two-way player, Travis, right? I'm drawing a blank, but a two-way player. He plays cornerback and wide receiver. Yeah, they had a good run, and then they were real flashy. Shedeur had the little watch celebration, got criticized. The one thing that kind of like turned me off about them was after the Stanford loss. I think the Stanford, because they went 4-8 or something like that. They didn't even make a bowl game. I thought they could have made a bowl game. I thought the pivotal moment for them was because they started off, they beat TCU in the first game of the year, which was a major upset. You know, they had a nail biter against Colorado State. Oh my God, that's a nail biter, man. And a couple other good wins, but they were up by 26 points at halftime against Stanford, and they lost that game. Travis Hunter, I think it's his name. But anyway, they lost that game. And I thought that Deion Sanders, I love Deion Sanders. I love you, Deion. I love you, Coach Prime. But I was disappointed that after the game, Coach Prime didn't take responsibility, because I think that loss was all coaching. You up 26-0, and you let Stanford come back, you know. And after the game, it seems like Deion was criticizing his players after the game. But it's like, dude, these are the same players that got you the 26-point lead in the first place. The same players. So maybe the coaching could have been better to keep them from losing the lead. For example, Travis Hunter was getting abused by that wide receiver at Stanford. That wide receiver at Stanford had a coming out party against Travis Hunter, and they didn't double team, they didn't make no adjustments. They just left that boy on the island by himself. They could have did something to stop that. 26-point lead, and you lose the game. So I was kind of turned off by that, and I think their season kind of went downhill from there. You know what I'm saying? But having said all that, man, they're a great story. And I saw that they got like the #1 offensive lineman recruit out of high school committed there next year. And they got a lot of good transfers coming there. So I expect them to be good in 2024, man. And again, I was a little bit critical of that one part of the season, but overall, man, that's my favorite sports story of the year. And I think Deion Sanders even was Sports Person of the Year for Sports Illustrated, if I'm not mistaken. But shout out to the Colorado Buffaloes, man. And yeah, that's my whole year in review, man. Those are all the cool things that happened this year. I hope that, you all had a good year, but I hope the 2024 will be even a better year. Knock on wood that we make it to 2024. We got another day and a half left. But I love y'all, man, and I want y'all to be successful. I want to be successful in 2024. So I say surround yourself with positive people that got your best interest at heart, because the people you're around will dictate how far you're going to go. You know what I'm saying? If you don't like where you at, look at the company you keep. You know what I'm saying? Look around. That's my biggest takeaway. And if you do got good people rocking with you, good solid people rocking with you, hold on to those people. Don't let them go. You know what I'm saying? Having said that, man, I'm Brian Onrea. This is the Onrea Initiative 2023 recap, man. I hope y'all stay going after it. Stay chasing your dreams, man. We're going to get it together, man. Let's go.